Welcome to another episode of the Writer's Game podcast. We are back on another episode where we help you magnify your voice and monetize your message. Today, I have somebody on here that I had the privilege of meeting months ago. Now, that was like last year, right, Elise?
I think it was in October or something. I know time's flying.
October of last year. And when we met, just truly blew my mind. Our conversation, hearing some of the amazing things that you were doing in a lot of different spaces. We reconnected at Afrotech, and we've been in contact since. And you're not just somebody who is definitely an influencer, I guess, based upon societal standard, but somebody that really has the heart to be able to make true change in people's lives. And I'm really
Thanks.
excited for our audience to get to know you. So could you introduce yourself, tell us what you're doing and how you're changing lives?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know if I can do it as good as you just did, but that was great. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Happy to be here. Happy to know you. It's been a quick time already. We're all of a sudden in July. We met in October. I don't know how time is like that, but it is. But yeah, my name is Elise Swopes. I am a visual storyteller, and I say that only because it really culminates literally everything that I do, from digital graphic design to photography to illustration to videography. And then there's also the mentorships, the public speaking, the workshopping, and all intertwined within NFTs and social media and content creation. And yeah, it's really just mission forward, vision forward, intentional forward. So I love talking about wellness. I love psychology. I love partnering with brands and individuals to really highlight different, impactful messages, whether that's incarceration or, different issues that people are facing, making things make sense for people. Yeah, I just say yes and I figure it out later. So I worked with tons of different brands, from Google to Apple to Adobe to Adidas to NBC and beyond. I've traveled all over the world working with tons of different celebrities as well, from Will Smith to Jada Pinkett Smith. And now I just graduated college last year, and now after being a college dropout for 13 years, which has been interesting. But really getting to my own now, thinking about maybe getting a doctorate in something and writing books and being an educator. And I've since even started doing some public speaking courses. We'll talk about that too in a little bit. That I'm excited about, to continue helping, just share ideas and messages and all that good stuff. So, yeah, I love to change lives, but I can't help it. It's like something in my heart. I wish I could like almost be ignorant sometimes, because then I would be like not as busy and overwhelmed, and I could settle. But there is no settling. I just can't accept, a lot of things, and I create solutions for those things. So yeah, I'm happy to be the person I am.
You haven't always been this person.
No, I haven't.
There's so much that was unpacked in what you communicated. The fact that you've been able to work with all of these brands and do all of these amazing things, and the fact that you were a college dropout. The fact that you've been able to travel the world and meet people and be in some of the most powerful and influential rooms without having societal standards of education behind you, backing this initiatives and all of these different things that you're doing. For somebody right now that wants to get started, that maybe doesn't have the college degree or maybe does have the college degree, but they're wanting to do something because they're led to it, but they don't know where to start, what would you advise that person to do?
Start where you are. Start exactly where you are. Don't wait for that perfect moment. Don't wait for that perfect opportunity to come up, because it may never happen until you're really in the thick of it and when you really understand what it's all worth. I wouldn't be the creator that I am if I wasn't that college dropout who went on Craigslist and found a broken iPhone 4 and signed up for Instagram with that broken iPhone 4 and started taking photos with that broken iPhone 4. So, I didn't wait for that perfect moment to have a nice camera or whatever, or, expensive programs. Like, I was using free apps. And so having that understanding that exactly what I envisioned, but it was just enough to get my, you know, get the running started. I mean, I can't imagine anything more inspirational or more motivational than that.
Exactly. Did you always want to do this, or was there something that you were exposed to, or someone you met that kind of moved you into this industry?
Yeah, I'd say I've probably always wanted to create art, digital art specifically, because I was homeschooled when I was a kid. My dad is an educator, still an educator to this day. And I was homeschooled until about third or fourth grade. And when we were being educated at home, it was always on the computer. And when I would get on the computer, I would just open up all these different digital programs. And there was this one program on there called Kid Pix, and it was this digital kid kind of Photoshop program. And I just loved creating on there. I loved drawing stuff, and as much as I loved making art in classes like then, I think I was a much better artist when I was a kid than I am now, at least physically.
Yeah.
But I loved painting, I loved drawing, I loved just creating in general, and I feel like it's always been in my heart. But the photography and the digital kind of surrealism didn't really start until probably like MySpace days. And yeah, I have a 250,000 followers on Instagram. I had about the same amount of friends on MySpace when I was like 13 years old. So I was still monetizing by creating MySpace layouts for people. I was still, monetizing even just my follower count. I was like an influencer then, and I didn't even know it. So I guess it's just always kind of been in me in some way, shape, or form.
Of course. You go on a lot of different interviews, you are on a lot of different platforms. And I think a lot of times we ask people questions specific to their profession or their influence, but we don't really ask the questions that get to know the actual person. What's a question that you wish more platforms or more people asked you about you?
um I guess probably like the obstacles,
Yeah.
because I think everyone likes to hear about the success and the all the good stuff and like all the celebrity names. But I think when I think mostly back on my process and my life and my career, it has been the obstacles that have almost led the way and have opened the doors to me getting better and advancing who I am. All of my struggles with drug addiction, all of my struggles with depression and anxiety, struggles with not even being aware that I could even think separately than my mind. All these different like life navigations, I think aren't talked about enough, and I'm always kind of willing to be the one to talk about it, because I think it's important. I really do. I think we shouldn't glamorize this intensity of this fast-paced lifestyle when I don't think it's sustainable. That's why I wake up at 5 a.m. every day to read, to meditate, to work out, to really set the standard for myself, because I learned that that lifestyle before was not going to work. And so I had to create a system and put something in place to make it work. And so a lot of people, I think, they're not making it work. And you got to make it work. You got to think about how you're going to make it last, because it'll get, when they say more money, more problems, it's not a game.
No, I definitely second that for sure. I love what you said. Like it's a difference between making it work besides and making it last. Because I
Yes.
think in the seasons that a lot of us are in, we're making it work, but that intensity cannot last and it cannot sustain you, and you're gonna get burnt out.
Yes.
And I like what you and how vulnerable you were when you talked about the addiction and the depression and the anxiety and all of those different things that you experienced. When you think of those different obstacles and all of the obstacles that you've been met with, what was one obstacle that truly shaped who you are today? And how did you face it? And then how did you get through it?
I'd probably say the drug addiction was 100% one of the biggest things that affected my life, and not just a negative way, but such a positive way. Just because it gave me such a wonderful understanding and experience of what it feels like to really be at your lowest and how to put yourself back together, and what it means to feel really healthy and intentional and in control of your mind and in your life. And not just in a way that, and I'll go even further. I mean, it's not even just the addiction, it's also the ease of taking a pill to kind of mask these different things that I wasn't doing for myself, whether that was working out or eating well or reading or writing or just like being more intentional and studying myself and studying my mind. Like I wasn't doing those things, but I was also chasing, an Adderall or a Xanax or whatever. And like I think now it's so exciting to know that it isn't about taking these little, easy magical pills. It's about how can I find a book or create a system or find a solution where I can genuinely get better. And I've seen it in my own life. How can I continuously get better to just study who I am? And I think it's like such a fun, amazing, powerful thing to have and to know, that I wish I could like input on other people, but you have to experience it yourself to really know. And it's a wisdom and a knowledge that like will never go away.
When you were in that space, what was the wake up call for you? What was that moment where you were like, no more, I'm going to start to do better? So, what was the wake up call and what was the first step that you took?
Well, I was going to die if I didn't stop. If I didn't stop taking the drugs, I was definitely going to die, and I had to make sure that I didn't die. But I will say that there was this very specific moment that I remember where I had been with a couple of my friends at my apartment, and we had bought some shrooms, and I did the shrooms, and I was looking off my balcony, and I had like a cigarette in my hand. I was smoking cigarettes at the time. I haven't touched one since. And I looked at it and I was like, this is disgusting. What am I doing with my life? What is going on? Why am I like, I'm literally going to die. And I just stopped everything that day. And that shifted. I mean, it wasn't the easiest. There was, a lot of people I had to cut off, a lot of different changes I had to make in my life. And that was when I started reading. That's when I started meditating. That's when I started working out again. My relationships got better. I mean, like everything around me got changed immediately after that. And I think that's kind of where the shift occurred. And I don't know what spoke to me. I don't know what happened. I am a big fan of shrooms, but I will say that, I mean, it was just an awareness of like looking at myself in the mirror and being like, accepting like exactly where I was that needed that wake up.
Wow. And now that you've waken up and you're thriving and striving, what are you most excited about moving forward in your life?
Well, I'm excited to be just so intentional and just like use my magic for good. Like there's so much that I could be doing at all times, and I think that's it's like the hard part, but it's also the exciting part. People are always like, you need to pick a niche. I'm like the worst person to tell that to, because I do a million things and I love doing a million things. Doing one thing maybe stifles me sometimes, but I think um yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited just to like have that perspective of knowing and understanding human thinking, human experiences, human social interactions. And that allows me to have better relationships with people. It allows me to not be affected by social media as much, especially being in the space of a content creator. There's a lot of different people who may, comment or say something, and I'm just like, oh, well, they're just having a bad day. What I used to be like, you mother, you're like, but now it's like, I really don't care. I don't care at all. All that matters to me is consistently elevating myself and my health and like how I feel inside of my body. When I feel good, I can make everybody else feel good.
I think that's one of the really cool things that I've learned about you is that a lot of people want to focus a lot on the exterior. How do I make more money? How do I grow my brand? But what you've done that I admire is that how can I become better? How can I understand myself more? How can I be rooted in my values and build a foundation that is strong? And in turn, it's grown everything else outside of your life or inside of your life as well. And it's allowed you to work with these brands and have opportunities like before we got on the call that you're talking about as well, with Adobe. And it's really cool and it's really refreshing to hear. When you think about somebody right now that's listening in that wants to work with brands, that wants to create content, where do they need to start in regards to this process of getting to know themselves and living a more healthy and in tune lifestyle?
Yeah. I mean, I'll even say, even transparently, that I was still getting projects when I was an addict. So that's a whole other conversation that needs to be talked about, is how brands and individuals can't recognize when someone's in trouble and is enabling them in some way. But
Hold on,
I
let's pause.
digress.
I want to stay there for a second.
Yeah.
I want you to expand on that.
Well, it's like we live in a society where my friends say that as a joke, but I mean it for real. Like it was a very tough time where I don't know if I should have been in front of the camera, but people were still needing their messages shown, and there's, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's like the world will move with or without you, is kind of what it signified to me. And at that time, it was less about what anyone else was going to do for me and more about what I could do for myself. Because if that was the case, I literally would have died. But anyway, I think the most important thing for me, and this is something that because the career that I have now is different than the career that I came up with, because what helps you survive for a little bit won't help you survive forever.
Mhm.
I had to say yes to every single project for a long time. And that saying yes to projects that I didn't even think I could do allowed me to experience what I wanted to do, what felt good for me, what didn't work out, what did I want to keep doing. And I think receiving those opportunities were because I was consistently expressing myself online, consistently showcasing the different facets of myself, whether that was photography of myself, which I used to do a lot of self portraits all the time, with my iPhone, and then, different photography, different surreal messaging, different stuff that I felt would help me showcase my Instagram, so to speak, as a portfolio.
Exactly.
And that, I think, in time has been great, because even through those little projects that I said yes to that may or may not have worked for me, it allowed me to show people, even through those, all the different facets of myself as well. Like when I did a project with Method Soap, I did 8 posts of Method Soap. And I did I had like a guy, like I had hands in Lake Michigan washing its hands. Like that's, I would have never been able to do that if I didn't have that partnership and think outside the box. And sometimes I'll show that to other brands, and now that's an example of what I do. But when I said yes to it, I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. So it's utilizing these different challenges to kind of even elevate yourself, to see how much more you could do next time. Because like there's projects I've pitched to Adobe that I don't even know how to do, and they've approved it, and I'd be like, oh my God, no, I have to figure out how to do this.
Exactly.
And that's just how it is.
That takes a level of faith, though.
It
It
does.
takes a level of faith and belief in either yourself a lot or in something bigger. There's a lot of people that don't have that faith, though. There's a lot of people that are waiting for the perfect moment. Talk to that person for me.
I think this, and I guess this starts off a little bit from like how I've been raised, like digitally, right? Where we have these amazing tools and opportunities to like hit redo and undo and delete and post, like, and if something's not working, like just get rid of it, just delete it, just undo, redo, like try something different. I think we're really stuck in this phase of like thinking that what we do at that moment is forever, when it's really just a minute piece of the whole story. And there's one book that really changed me a lot and shifted like my thinking of like how meaningful being present is, even in like our intentions, is The Time Paradox. And The Time Paradox was a really great book because it helps you understand how your time perspective either holds you back or pushes you forward. And I would suggest anyone read that book for sure. And maybe Power of Now, obviously. That was like one of the first books I ever read to like my sobriety.
Power of Now is amazing. That's a good
Power
one.
of Now is great. And I feel like everyone should revisit it every now and then. But, you know, and then there's another book too that I don't maybe get into books now. There's one more book is the slowing down to the speed of life. I think that's another really good one, and understanding that the life that we live with all this technology and the internet and the pushing of the content and all stuff, it's not realistic and it's not necessary, and we can still survive with or without it, in some way, shape, or form. So just slowing down and remembering what we're really here for.
As you're remembering what you were here for, and as you think about your life in general, what is one problem that you see in the world that you feel that you were uniquely designed to solve?
I think that I'd say there's something that I'm really good at when it has to do with just self-awareness and self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
Very self-sufficient. And I could teach anybody how to do that, from creating a personal brand to expressing yourself, being creative, how loving yourself. You know, I mean, I could be my own therapist. And I think in essence that was really just a survival mode, because I had been in psych wards. I had seen a tons of therapists and they'd never really felt like they understood me. And maybe I even felt like I could therapy them a little bit. So now I've just become this self-sufficient beast that's like, I could do all my work myself. But again, that's like something that I'm working on too. Is that lone wolf wanderer kind of mentality where like you don't have to do everything yourself. And that's I mean, the answer to that is my agency. And that has been such a great practice for me, to work with a bigger team, to direct people, to trust that they'll do their part. All that kind of stuff has been different.
Talk to me about your agency. What does it do? What are you guys helping people do?
Yeah, I love Sunrise Art Club. Sunrise Art Club is a Web3 based impact agency, and we support brands and individuals in being a part of Web3 and helping Web3 make sense, and making
For
sure
somebody
that,
who doesn't know what Web3 is, talk to me about that.
well, Web3 in essence is our ability to finally own our data, our ability to allow the data that we have been using to be decentralized and utilized by different entities. So, for example, when you go to the doctor, you know, you've got to fill out a sheet with all your information. Now, if we lived in a decentralized world, you wouldn't have to fill out that sheet every single time. Every single doctor would have access to that sheet. But the issue is that we live in a centralized society. That means that doctor can keep that data and keep your information and monetize you. So the reason why Web3 is so exciting is because we now have the ability to keep access of our data, to utilize our data for our own good. And it's not just NFTs and all that good stuff. NFTs are great, but it's bigger than NFTs.
Why is it important for people to learn more about Web3 and I guess become, knowledgeable in that area?
Well, I'd say it's important that people understand Web3 because it ties in a couple different things. Well, it's tech literacy, it's potentially financial literacy, and having both of those things in your understanding will really help and benefit you in the long run. I think a lot of people are terrified of Web3 and NFTs in general because they just don't understand it. And what you don't understand, obviously you're like, I don't want anything to do with it. And so to open your mind to learning all these things that are going to take a long time to understand, I get it. I completely get it. But I think we have to take it little by little. And that's really what Sunrise Art Club is here to do, is to help people make sense of all this stuff that may seem overwhelming and really simplifying it so that it's digestible.
That definitely makes sense, and I think all of those characteristics and traits are important for people. When we look at the gaps that are real in America and wherever in the world, the reality of it is that if we don't educate and equip ourselves now, those gaps are continuing to widen. When you think of, if there is one trait that you can inherit, that would truly help you achieve everything in the future, what would you want?
That's a really fun question. I guess if I could have one trait, is self-sufficiency a trait? Because I still would go with the same thing I have now. I wouldn't change a thing. Oh no.
I'm here.
Oh no. Oh, I thought we lost you. I only see my face. Okay, there you
I'm
are.
here.
Okay. But yeah, no, I think yeah.
When you know, Elise, one of the things that I appreciate about you is your ability to be very self-aware. When you think about your 8-year-old self, what would that person think of you right now?
She would probably, oh my gosh, what was I doing at 8? I was probably like just going into public school, which is crazy. Maybe even after that. I'm not sure. But I think that little me would be very impressed and very in awe and probably very confused on what we're even doing, because this job or anything that I do did not exist at 8 years old. So, but I also think the 8-year-old would be like, that makes sense. That adds up. She'd be proud though and happy. But I don't think she would know to have the ability to be proud, because she may be a little too childish and shy and a little too like distracted by Pokemon cards or something to even really care.
You know, I think life is a collection of sacrifices. What is a sacrifice that you've made in the past year, and one that you still need to make that can push you closer to your destiny?
Oh gosh. The most recent sacrifice that I made would probably be I feel like I make sacrifices every day, but to pinpoint them, I feel like it's a tough one. I think I'll say the sacrifices that I've made are the sacrifices that are required for other people to learn.
Mm.
And I don't know if that makes sense, but I've just had to like make sure that I'm not talking all the time, that I need to like pull back, that I like to, and I guess it's not a sacrifice, but I feel like it's a sacrifice in some way. I'm like sacrificing my voice, but I don't always need to respond to something. I don't always need to micromanage, or anything like that. I think that's something that is an obstacle to me, but also like a sacrifice where I maybe just sacrificing like the message that I want to say, but like I don't need to say it. Yeah.
You've talked a lot about visual storytelling. What is visual storytelling in your own words? And why is it important for people to tell stories?
Well, visual storyteller is the visual display of a story, I suppose. I mean, in any way, shape, or form, whether that's illustration, video, photography, and beyond. And the reason why I say visual storyteller is because there's so many damn things that I do that even Adobe was like, we don't know how to explain to our higher ups what you do. I'm like, I don't even know what to tell you. But I think it's something that I enjoy. But I think what really embodies it is just the storytelling behind every piece that is made. Sometimes it could be my own personal experience with something, whether I'm just inspired by a scene and I feel like there's something else that needs to be told about the empty negative space, and that means I'm going to add a giraffe, right? I don't know. But then there's the other end where a brand is coming to me to spread a message, and I've got to figure out how to get that message across. And that is, maybe I'm partnering with a Boys and Girls Club and helping them, learn how to do photography. And now they've all got the shoes that Adidas has given me, like something like that. I think being able to kind of tie in the visual element and the messaging and the storytelling all into one in a successful way so people can engage with it, I think that's visual storytelling.
You've talked a lot about brands, and how do you go about getting your brands? Somebody that's been watching this, like, oh, she's worked with all of these different companies. How does one first build a brand, a personal brand, and then also go about getting access to some of the brands that you've worked with?
Yeah. Well, I've been working with the brands for a long time. And it's been like a roller coaster, I'd say. There's some brands that I love working with because they'll just give you complete freedom. And then there's other brands who will tell you exactly what to create. And sometimes I like both. It doesn't, it really depends on what the messaging is.
Yeah.
And most of the times the way that I get those brands is by them emailing me. They'll see my social media somehow, or they've heard from, someone else. I mean, I'm telling you, word of mouth is OG, and it will always be OG for the rest of our lives. I don't care how many views on social media you got. Word of mouth is still king. And so there's just always been this amazing thing that happens where, when I do one project, it could be someone who worked on that project working on something else, and they'll tell someone else about this thing they worked on, or there'll be someone working at one agency, and then they'll stop working at the agency and go to another one, and still remember that you worked hard and that you were on time and that you impress them in some way, shape, or form. So I think just being present and grateful and your best in every single opportunity will allow you to get those continuous opportunities. And then most importantly, sharing those opportunities on social media. And it doesn't matter if you have a ton of followers or a ton of engagement. I'm telling you, people and brands are much more interested now in the micro influencer, because there's a lot more in honest and authentic feedback, and it's not as produced and it's not as forced, you know what I'm saying? And so they want just regular people doing regular things. So
it makes sense. If you had 30 to 60 seconds to share a message with the world that everybody would hear, what would you say?
I think if I had 30 to 60 seconds to give a message to the world, I would probably say that absolutely anything is possible with imagination. Do not hold yourself back because of this perfect ideal of what things are supposed to be like. When that moment is perfect, you will feel it, and you have to give yourself that opportunity to feel it. It can't be felt if you're standing still. So feel all the feels, and then most importantly, study why you feel. Study your body, study your mind, study spirit, study all of that good stuff. Because the more you know why things are, the better you can utilize them and find an answer of why something is happening. Figure it out.
You have always inspired me. Always. And I really appreciate you so much. A lot of the things that you've covered today, and who's ever going to, either you're watching the live or the recording, I want you to impart those things into your lives on a daily basis, because it's so much more than just working with brands and having celebrity contacts and all of these different things. If you don't figure out what's inside, then you're not going to be able to produce anything that is worth the world seeing, in a sense. So I appreciate you so much. We're on another episode of the Writers Game podcast, where we help you guys magnify your voice and monetize your message. And we'll see you all next episode.